There is a deep pain that only a mother who has lost a child can understand. It is a wound that words cannot fully describe, a sorrow that lingers with every breath. This story, God Among Gods, is a journey of grief, hope, faith, and rebirth. It follows the life of Ugama, a woman who faces the heavy loss of her children, the struggles of tradition, and the silent cries of her heart. When all seemed lost, and even the God she trusted failed her, a new light broke through her darkness, a promise of life, a promise of love, and a promise of a new beginning. This story is not just about sorrow. It is about the powerful hand of God that lifts the broken, the gentle voice that calls the hopeless, and the amazing miracle of answered prayers. Through Ugama's journey, I hope you will see that even in the deepest pain, hope can still be found. That even when every door seems closed, God can open a new one. And that truly, God is with us. Enjoy this relaxing moment with Valentino's stories. Remember to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments section, and generously hit the like button because it means a lot to us. Please relax and enjoy as we dive in the story. No, this is not happening again. I screamed with all the strength in me as I ran out from my hut. My heart felt like it would burst. My legs carried me faster than I ever thought they could, running towards the river. God of Olimilai, here I come. I cried out to the skies. Prepare to answer all my questions. Today it must end. I am coming deep into the current of the river, and I will not come out again. My voice echoed through the village, but I did not care who heard me. Why have you folded your hands, Olimilai? Why have you allowed me to suffer like this? After all my sacrifices to you, why do you still punish me with empty arms? Why? Tears poured down my cheeks, hot and bitter. They blurred my sight, but I kept running. I ran past men carrying firewood, past women grinding pepper, past little children playing. I collided with them, knocking baskets and tools over, but none of that mattered. Their shocked faces, their whispers, their pointing fingers, none of it reached me. My breasts were heavy and full of milk, but there was no child to feed on them. I thought aloud, my voice trembling, who will drink this milk now? Obayaku is gone. As I ran, milk leaked from my breasts, soaking through the Pruru Oka wrapper I used to cover myself. It felt warm and sticky against my skin, a painful reminder of what I had lost. Finally, I reached the river, the great river of Ubaka village, the river of life and death. The water glistened in the sun, calm and wide, almost calling to me. I dropped to my knees at the river's edge, sobbing. According to the tradition of Ubaka, no one must enter the river wearing clothes. So, in between sobs, I began to undress. My hands shook as I pulled at my wrapper. I had only managed to loosen the knot when I heard a small voice behind me. "Mama," the voice called softly. I froze. My heart stopped beating for a moment. Slowly, I turned around. There, standing a few feet away from me, was a little boy. He was unlike any child I had ever seen in our village. Children in Ubaka wore simple little pants, beads around their waists, cowries tied to their ankles, and their bodies rubbed with sacred white chalk, nzu. But this boy was dressed in a fine cloth, neat and beautiful, like the clothes the white men wore when they came to the village on the last Nkwo market day. His skin was smooth, his face handsome. His entire body seemed to glow under the morning sun, almost like he carried the light inside him. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. "I am your child," he said gently. "I am coming to you soon. Nothing will take me away from you." His eyes were kind, full of peace. "Please, Mama, don't enter the river. Listen to the word, and I will come." His words melted my heart. It was as if all the pain, the fear, the anger inside me suddenly became soft like melted wax. Tears continued to run down my face. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand and asked him, "Promise me you will come?" "I will," he answered with a smile that warmed my soul. I bent my head, overwhelmed, wiping the endless tears. I wanted to ask him more, to hold his hands, to know where he had come from. But when I lifted my head again, he was gone. Gone, like he had never been there. Fear rushed through my body. I felt the hair on my arms stand. Goosebumps covered my skin. Was it a dream? Was it a vision? Or was it the spirit of the child who would one day come to me? I did not know. But I knew one thing. Hope had returned to my heart. Slowly, carefully, I began dressing myself again, tying my wrapper back around my body. I wiped my face with the edge of my wrapper. At that moment, I heard a voice shouting from behind. "Ugama! Ugama! What do you want to do to yourself?" It was Ikena, my husband. He had seen Obyaku's body back at the hut and must have heard that I had run to the river. His voice was full of fear and love. "Ugama, please don't do this," he cried as he rushed toward me. "You will kill me if you do." I looked into his eyes, and my heart softened. I managed a small, faint smile and said, "Obim, I have heard you. Let us go home." And we turned away from the river together, walking slowly back to our hut. Inside my heart, I thanked the god of Olimilai for sending the little boy, the vision, the promise. If not for him, Ikena would have come only to find my lifeless body floating in the river. I held tightly to that tiny light of hope, praying that one day it would grow into the joy I longed for. It had been 2 market days since we buried little Obyaku. The hut was quiet, almost too quiet. I lay on my mat, staring at the ceiling, my heart heavy with sadness. The air smelled of sorrow, and every corner of the hut reminded me of the child I had lost. Ikena, my husband, came into the hut. I could hear the soft sound of his footsteps. He sat close to me and called my name gently. "Ugama," he whispered, his voice low and careful, as if afraid to break me even more. He lay beside me, his warmth close, but he did not touch me yet. "You know," he began slowly, "I have not touched you since Obyaku passed away." I turned to look at him. His eyes were soft, full of pain and longing. I tried to smile, but it was a weak, broken smile. The memories of all the children I had lost rushed into my mind, each small face, each tiny cry, each painful goodbye. My heart grew heavier. "Obim," I said, using the name I called him when my heart was tender, "for how long will we keep trying when it always ends in pain?" My voice shook with sadness. Ikena reached out and held my hand. His hand was rough from farm work, but his touch was gentle. "Don't lose hope, Ugama," he said quietly. "The god of Olimilai will surely answer us one day." I pulled my hand back slowly. My chest tightened. "The same god I have sacrificed to so many times?" I asked, bitterness leaking into my voice. "The same god who has taken my children and left my arms empty?" Before I could say more, Ikena quickly placed his hand over my mouth. His eyes widened in fear. "Shoo," he said quickly. "Do not speak against the gods, Ugama. You could bring a curse upon yourself. Please, my wife, even if you are in pain, do not say such things." I held his gaze, seeing the fear and love mixed together in his eyes. Slowly, I closed my mouth, feeling the sharp taste of unspoken words on my tongue. Then, like a gentle wind, I remembered the boy at the river, the shining boy who had called me Mama, the boy who had promised to come to me if I listened to the word. The memory softened my heart. It was like a small light inside me, chasing away a little of the darkness. I let out a slow, shaky breath. Maybe there was still hope after all. Slowly, I moved closer to Ikena. I rested my head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. He wrapped his arms around me, holding me tightly as if he would never let go. I closed my eyes and surrendered to his embrace. I held on to the fragile hope inside me, the hope that somehow, someday, the boy's promise would come true. The news of the white men had spread like wildfire across Ubaka village. Everywhere people gathered, at the market, at the village square, even at the riverbank, they spoke of the visitors. Some said they brought strange messages. Others said they had come with powerful charms. Many were afraid, while others were simply curious. But for me, my mind was far from the news of the white men. I was busy with my work. The new Yam Festival was coming soon, and there was so much to do. I spent most of my days in the farm, digging, harvesting, and gathering my yams. In the evenings, I cleaned and stacked them in the barn, ready for the celebrations. At the same time, I was preparing for another sacrifice to the god of Olimilai, asking once again for the blessing of a living child. My thoughts were full of offerings and prayers. I barely gave a passing thought to the strangers everyone talked about. One bright morning, while stacking yams in front of my hut, I heard the sound of quick, small footsteps. Turning around, I saw little Koima, the daughter of Obiageli, running toward me. Her face was full of fear and tears. Without thinking, she ran into my arms, hiding behind me. Not far behind her came Obiageli herself, chasing and shouting angrily. "Obiageli, what is it? Why are you chasing this child so early in the morning?" I asked, stepping forward to protect Koima. Obiageli, breathing hard, pointed at the girl. "Let her come and bathe," she shouted. "This girl refuses to bathe, and now I have to chase her all over the village." I smiled gently at Koima, who clung to my wrapper tightly. Her small hands grasped me like I was her only hope. "Don't worry," I said to Obiageli. "Let her stay. I will bathe her today. Remember, I was the one who helped you bathe her when she was still very small." I thought my words would soften Obiageli's heart, but they did the opposite. Her face twisted with anger. Her voice was sharp, filled with bitterness. "And who are you to come between me and my daughter, you witch?" she shouted. My eyes widened in shock. "Obiageli, are you talking to me like that?" I asked, hurt flooding my voice. "Who are you that I cannot talk to?" she spat. "You want to eat my daughter the way you ate your 4 children. May the god of Olimilai strike you dead." With a rough hand, she dragged Koima away from me. I stood there, frozen. Her words had pierced me deeper than any knife. It was as if she had shouted my shame for all the world to hear. My heart broke all over again, bleeding from wounds that had never really healed. Tears filled my eyes, blurring my vision. I turned away from the gathering eyes of a few villagers who had started to watch. I did not want them to see my pain. Looking up to the sky, I let the tears flow freely. "God of Olimilai!" I cried out. My voice was full of sorrow and anger. "Did you hear her? Did you hear the shame she poured on me? Please, Olimilai, vindicate me. Show them I am not cursed. Give me a child that will live, so that no one will mock me again." I wept bitterly, my body shaking with every sob. It felt like the ground under my feet had broken, leaving me standing on emptiness. The yam barn, the white men, the new yam festival, all of it faded from my mind. In that moment, only one thing mattered: my prayer for a child and my desperate need to be freed from shame. The next day, I was once again busy in my compound, stacking more yams for the coming New Yam Festival. The sun was bright overhead, and sweat rolled down my face as I worked. My back ached from bending and lifting, but I continued without stopping. As I worked, I heard the sound of footsteps approaching. I wiped my forehead with the edge of my wrapper and turned to look. There, standing at the entrance of my compound, were a group of white men. Their skin was pale, and they wore clothes different from anything we wore in Ubaka village. They looked neat and serious. One of them stepped forward and spoke in a strange but careful voice. "Peace be unto you, woman," he said, raising his hand slightly. I frowned. I was tired and busy. I had no time for strange greetings. "How can I help you?" I asked sharply, not bothering to hide my irritation. Another man, a bit taller than the first, spoke next. "We have come to give you the word," he said, his voice calm and steady. I blinked. "The word?" I asked, not understanding what he meant. I shook my head and waved my hand toward them, trying to send them away. "Please leave, as you can see, I am very busy," I snapped. I turned back to my yams, hoping they would go away quietly. I continued working, but inside my heart, something stirred. A memory flashed suddenly in my mind, clear and sharp. I remembered the little boy at the river, the shining boy who had called me Mama. I remembered his soft voice saying, "Listen to the word." My hands froze. My heart began to beat faster. Could it be? Could this be the word he had spoken about? Without thinking, I dropped the yam I was holding and ran after the white men. They were already walking away from my compound, their backs turned. "Please wait," I called out, my voice trembling. "Please, what word?" They stopped and turned around to face me. Their faces were kind and full of patience. One of them smiled and stepped closer. "It is the word of our Lord Jesus," he said. "It is the good news. Whoever believes in Jesus Christ will be saved." I stood still, listening carefully. His words sounded different from anything I had heard before. They did not speak of sacrifices or shrines. They spoke of believing and being saved. My mind raced. Saved? From sorrow? From pain? From shame? Could this be true? They continued to speak gently, inviting me to come to their Sunday school where they would teach more about this Jesus and his message. I looked at them, feeling confused but also a little hopeful. I remembered again the boy by the river, the bright, shining boy who had promised to come if I listened to the word. Was this the word? Was this the path that would finally bring me the child I had longed for, the joy I had prayed for all these years? Still feeling unsure but moved by something deep inside me, I agreed to come. I nodded slowly. "Yes," I said in a small voice. "I will come." The white men smiled warmly and nodded in return. Then they turned and left, leaving me standing there among the yams, my heart beating with a new and strange feeling, the feeling of a small, trembling light being lit deep within me. At the first light of dawn, I woke up. The sky was still dark, and the morning was very cold. I tied my wrapper tightly around me and picked up the basket of items I had prepared for the sacrifice. Today was the day for the most difficult and most important sacrifice I had ever made to Elimelech. My hands trembled as I held the basket. My legs felt weak, but I forced myself to move. I had to do this. I had to try once more to get a living child. I started walking toward the shrine. The path was quiet, and the trees looked like tall shadows standing over me. Every step I took made my heart beat faster. Fear pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe. The shrine of Elimelech was deep inside the forest, and it was forbidden to go there with anyone. I was alone. Only my thoughts and my fear walked with me. As I walked slowly, trying not to fall, I suddenly heard a voice, soft but clear, floating in the cold morning air. It was the same voice I had heard at the river, the voice of the little boy. "Listen to the word, the saving word," the voice echoed. I stopped in my tracks. My heart jumped to my throat. I looked around quickly, but I could see no one. The trees whispered in the wind, but there was no boy, no person at all. Fear gripped me like a cold hand. My basket almost dropped from my hands. Part of me wanted to run back home, but another part of me pushed me forward. I tightened my grip on the basket and forced myself to keep walking. Finally, I reached the shrine. I placed my basket at the foot of the sacred tree and whispered my prayers through trembling lips. I gave the sacrifice as was required. But in my heart, doubt was growing. Doubt and a strange feeling of hope that maybe there was another way, another answer. When I finished, I turned and began the long walk back home. By the time I reached the edge of the village, the sun was rising. The sky was full of soft colors, pink, orange, and gold. It was a beautiful sight, but my heart was heavy. As I walked through the village, I heard the sound of a gathering. Voices, many voices, speaking together. Curious, I moved closer. At the village square, a group of villagers had gathered around the white men. They stood together, listening. I stopped at the edge of the crowd. I did not plan to stay long, but something stronger than my own will, held me there. One of the white men was speaking. His voice was gentle, but powerful. "If you want to receive Christ," he said, "raise your hand." For a moment, silence fell over the crowd. People looked at one another. Then slowly, some began to raise their hands. I stood frozen. A battle was happening inside me. Part of me told me to leave. Another part whispered, "Stay." I thought of the boy's voice. "Listen to the saving word," he had said. With a trembling heart, I raised my hand. As I did, a strange peace washed over me, like cool water on a hot day. It was as if a heavy burden had been lifted from my shoulders. After the prayer, the white men gave each of us a book. I held mine carefully. "What is this?" I asked one of them softly. "It is the Bible," he answered with a kind smile. I looked at the book in my hands, small but heavy, and felt something change inside me. A new journey had begun. When I got home, Ikenna was in the compound, cleaning some farm tools. He looked up when he heard my footsteps. He wiped his hands on his wrapper and came closer to me, looking curious. "What is that you are holding?" he asked, noticing the small book pressed against my chest. I looked down at it, feeling its weight in my hands, and answered simply, "The Bible." Ikenna raised his eyebrows slightly but said nothing. I could tell he was surprised, but he did not question me. He only nodded and smiled faintly, as if he understood that something had changed. That night, after we finished our evening meal, Ikenna brought a small lamp close to where we usually sat. He asked if he could look at the Bible with me. I was happy. We sat side by side on the floor, the Bible open between us. Ikenna began to read slowly, his finger moving along the words so he would not miss any. At first, the words felt strange, different from the chants and prayers we knew from the shrine of Elimelei. But as he continued reading, something warm filled the small hut. The words spoke about love, about hope, about a God who cared deeply for his children. They spoke about a Savior named Jesus who came to heal broken hearts and give new life. As I listened, a strange feeling grew in my chest. It was like a soft light glowing inside me, chasing away the darkness that had lived there for so long. For the first time in many seasons, my spirit soared, not because something good had happened yet, but just because I believed something good could happen. The pain of losing 4 children had made me like a tree without roots, but now, listening to the words of the Bible, it felt like small roots were growing again inside my heart. The mockery from other women in the village, their hurtful words and cruel laughter, no longer crushed me the way it used to. I began to feel free. From that night onward, our lives changed little by little. Every Sunday, Ikenna and I would go to Sunday school together. We would sit on mats with other villagers under the big mango tree where the white men taught about Jesus. Each time we listened, my faith grew stronger. Each time we prayed, I felt lighter inside. At home, we made it a habit to read the Bible daily. Even if it was only a few lines, we made sure to open the book and read. We no longer visited the shrine of Elimelei. Our prayers were now directed to the God we read about in the Bible, the God who loved without asking for sacrifices of goats, chickens, or yams. Hope had been rekindled in my heart, a hope I thought had died forever. Now, it burned quietly but strongly, like a lamp that would not go out. The morning was bright and peaceful. Birds sang from the trees, and the soft breeze carried the smell of fresh earth. I tied my wrapper firmly and picked up my broom. As usual, I began to sweep the compound, moving slowly and carefully, making neat circles on the ground. But as I swept, I suddenly felt a strange weakness rush over me. My head spun, and the broom almost fell from my hand. I held my forehead, feeling dizzy. Everything around me seemed to move in a slow circle. Quickly, I dropped the broom and rushed behind the hut. Before I could even think clearly, I bent down and vomited. A bitter, watery substance came out of my mouth. I wiped my lips with the edge of my wrapper and leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. "Is it fever?" I wondered aloud, feeling confused. Fever was common in the village, and many people suffered from it, especially during the rainy season. Maybe that was it. Maybe I had caught a fever. I staggered back to the front of the hut and sat down weakly on a small mat. I lay back, staring up at the sky, too tired to even move my hand. Not long after, Ikenna returned from the farm. He walked into the compound carrying a basket of yams. When he saw me lying there, his face filled with concern. He dropped the basket immediately and rushed to my side. "Ugama, what is wrong with you?" he asked, touching my forehead gently. I opened my mouth to speak, but my voice was weak. "I don't know. I feel dizzy, sick," I managed to say. Ikenna looked at me carefully. Then a smile slowly broke across his face. His eyes brightened with hope. "Ugama, you are pregnant," he said joyfully. I frowned at him and shook my head slowly. "Keep quiet," I snapped, though my voice had no real strength. "Don't give me false hope. Don't say what you are not sure of." But Ikenna was not moved by my anger. He smiled even more. He sat down beside me and held my hand gently. "Tonight, we will go to Mama Eline's hut," he said softly. "She will check and tell us the truth." I closed my eyes, too tired to argue. Deep inside, a small voice whispered that maybe he was right, but I dared not believe it yet. Believing and losing again would hurt more than anything. Evening came. Ikenna helped me dress, and together we walked slowly to the hut of Mama Eline, the wise old woman known for helping pregnant women in our village. Her hut smelled of herbs and dried leaves. She welcomed us with a warm smile and made me lie down on a mat. Mama Eileen placed her hands gently on my stomach. She pressed here and there, nodding as she worked. Finally, she sat back and looked at me with eyes full of kindness. A broad smile spread across her wrinkled face. "You are carrying life," she declared with joy. For a moment, I could not speak. I just stared at her, letting her words sink deep into my heart. Then tears rolled down my cheeks, warm, unstoppable tears of pure joy. Ikena's face lit up with happiness, and he grabbed my hands tightly. We both stood up, thanking Mama Eileen again and again. Hand in hand, we left her hut, dancing lightly under the setting sun. It felt like the whole world had turned golden, like every tree and every breeze was singing with us. A new seed of hope had been planted, not just in my womb, but in my soul. After that wonderful evening at Mama Eileen's hut, our lives changed even more. We continued to worship Jesus Christ, the God we had learned about from the white men. We no longer visited the shrine of Elimelech. The fear of making endless sacrifices left our hearts. Instead, we prayed to Jesus, the one who had promised to hear us without needing goats, chickens, or yams. Every morning, I would kneel beside my bed and pray. Every night, before I closed my eyes to sleep, I prayed again. I prayed for the life inside me, asking Jesus to protect the child and help me carry him safely into the world. The pregnancy grew well. Unlike the others before, this one felt different. I was stronger. I was happier. Ikena also watched over me carefully, never letting me carry anything heavy or work too hard. The days passed slowly but sweetly. The months rolled by, and my belly grew bigger, round and full. The women in the village began to nod their heads when they saw me, smiling slightly. Some even whispered blessings when they passed. Still, deep inside, I continued to pray without ceasing. Fear sometimes tried to creep into my heart, but I chased it away with prayers and songs from Sunday school. Then one Sunday morning, something happened that I would never forget. Ikena and I had gone to Sunday school as usual. We sat under the big mango tree with the other villagers, listening carefully as the white man taught from the Bible. The sun was shining warmly above us. The soft breeze carried the smell of fresh earth and ripe fruits. I sat on the mat, smiling and enjoying the words being spoken. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain hit my waist. I gasped quietly and placed my hand on my side. Maybe it is just the baby stretching, I thought, and brushed it off. But soon, another pain came, fiercer and sharper. I bent slightly, biting my lower lip. Still, I tried to remain calm and listen to the preaching. Then the third pain struck, so strong that I could not stay silent. I screamed aloud, my voice breaking through the peaceful gathering. The women around me immediately understood what was happening. They jumped to their feet and quickly removed their wrappers, creating a shield around me to give me privacy. Inside that circle of cloth, I was surrounded by their strong hands and encouraging voices. "Push, Ugama, push," they whispered. With the pains coming closer and stronger, I did exactly that. I pushed with all my strength, my heart crying out to God to help me. Within minutes that felt like hours, the sound of a new cry filled the air. A healthy, bouncing baby boy was born into my arms. Tears of joy filled my eyes. I held the warm, slippery baby against my chest, feeling his heartbeat against mine. Everyone outside the wrapper shield screamed joyfully, clapping and shouting. "Emmanuel!" they called out loudly. The white men came forward with big smiles on their faces. They laid their hands gently on the baby's small head and prayed. "This child shall be called Emmanuel," one of them said, "because it means God with us." And truly, at that moment, I felt that God was indeed with us, in our hearts, in our home, and now, in the life of my beautiful son. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Ikena and I watched Emmanuel grow before our eyes, strong, healthy, and full of joy. Unlike the children we had lost before, Emmanuel grew without sickness. He laughed often, a sweet, happy sound that filled our home with warmth. His tiny hands grabbed at everything. His little feet kicked strongly, full of life. Each morning, when he opened his bright eyes and smiled at us, my heart would burst with gratitude. Each evening, when he fell asleep peacefully in my arms, I would whisper a prayer of thanks to Jesus, the God who had given us this precious gift. No longer did fear live in our hearts. We no longer waited for sickness to come. We no longer lived in sadness. Instead, our home was filled with laughter, pure laughter, and the sound of small footsteps running around the compound. Love and joy lived under our roof, wrapping us together like a warm cloth. We continued to worship Jesus, the God the white men had told us about. We never again returned to the shrine of Olimala. Our faith grew stronger with each passing day, just like Emmanuel grew taller and stronger before our eyes. Ikenna and I often sat together in the evenings, watching our son play, smiling without speaking. Words were not needed, our hearts were full. After years of pain and empty arms, our lives had found new meaning. Hope had been reborn. Love had returned. And the spirit of life had filled our home once more. Truly, God was with us, and his name was Emmanuel. Every tear Ugama cried, every prayer she whispered, was not forgotten. Her story reminds us that even in our darkest moments, there is a God who hears, who cares, and who saves. Faith, hope, and love carried her from sorrow to joy, from emptiness to fullness. And just like Ugama, we too can find new beginnings when we put our trust in the true and living God. May this story strengthen your heart and remind you, no pain is too deep for God to heal, and no dream is too lost for him to restore. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe for more interesting stories.